There's a chance.
Ready, Your Honor?
Yes, we're ready.
All rise for the jury.
Oh, please be seated. We're standing for you. And just so everybody knows, you can sit in whatever seat you want to sit over there. So usually jurors will switch it up on me to see if I remember them. All right, everyone, please be seated. And everyone, I'm sorry about the late start today. One reason why we had the late start, it had absolutely nothing to do with this case. I woke up this morning to a flat tire, and then I soon realized that cars no longer have an extra tire in it, not even the donut. So that took me a while to get that problem solved. And then I had some other cases that were unrelated to this case. So we're going to start. And if everyone can please raise your right hand for me. Right. Do you and each of you solemnly swear affirm in the case of the state of Texas against Mr. Thomas, you will a true verdict render according to the law and the evidence, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. State.
In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such at the May term AD 2021 of the 186th Judicial District Court of said county, in said court, at said term, do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, count one, on or about the 11th day of May 2006, Richard Thomas, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly engage in sexual contact with Nina Sanchez, a female child younger than 17 years, by touching part of the genitals of Nina Sanchez with the intent to arouse or gratify the sexual desire of any person. Count two, on or about the 23rd day of December 2011, Richard Thomas, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly engage in sexual contact with Nina Sanchez, a female child younger than 17 years, by causing Nina Sanchez to touch part of the genitals of the defendant with the intent to arouse or gratify the sexual desire of any person. Count three, on or about the 25th day of December 2011, Richard Thomas, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the sexual organ of Nina Sanchez, a child who was younger than 17 years of age and not the spouse of the defendant, by the defendant's sexual organ. Count four, on or about the first day of January 2012, Richard Thomas, hereinafter referred to as the defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the sexual organ of Nina Sanchez, a child who was younger than 17 years of age and not the spouse of the defendant, by the defendant's sexual organ. Count five, on or about the first day of February 2012, Richard Thomas, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the sexual organ of Nina Sanchez, a child who was younger than 17 years of age and not the spouse of a defendant, by the defendant's sexual organ, against the peace and dignity of the state, signed foreman of the grand jury.
All right. To those charges, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Or the defendant pleads not guilty on all counts.
All right, is that correct, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, state, do you have opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Let me please the court, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The story that you'll hear today is the story of a girl who came from a broken home. From the time she was young, she didn't really have a relationship with her father. And her mother, who was single at the time, began a relationship with the defendant, Richard Thomas, and brought him into their home. At the beginning, it was Nina Sanchez, who's the complainant in this case, and her sister, her younger sister, Jacqueline. Now, they didn't have a father, so they considered Richard to be their stepdad. And you'll learn how Richard Thomas used that relationship with Nina's mother to his advantage and took advantage of Nina, beginning from the age when she was 9 years old, and how the other adult in her life, her mother, continuously failed to protect her from the actions of the defendant. We anticipate the evidence to show that beginning around the age of 9 years old, Nina Sanchez was being touched in her private area on her sexual organ by the defendant. And you'll learn how his inappropriate touching of Nina continued and progressed as she got older, to the point where he had sex with Nina on multiple occasions. You'll hear how Nina's previously told this story to people. But because of that lack of protection from her family, she felt obligated to take back that statement, to keep the family together, and to protect her now two other additional younger siblings who were fathered by the defendant with Nina's mother, Santa, in order to prevent them from living a life without their father, just like she did. But you'll also hear how she's still telling this same story today, regardless of how old she is or how time passed, because what she told back then is a true story. And she was pressured to say it was a lie at that time. But you'll hear how her story has stayed consistent over this entire time period from 2007 through today. And you'll hear how greatly it has affected Nina, not just herself personally, but also the relationship with her family that's still fractured to this day. I would just ask you to listen to the evidence, take in the evidence, and we're confident that you'll return a finding of guilty in this case. Thank you.
All right, defense?
May it please the court,
Yes.
counselors, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. At this moment, I'd like to thank each and every one of you, because you are part of the process in which we started yesterday. My client has been waiting for this for a long time. Notice how the prosecutor said story. In fact, he said it several times, because this is what you're going to hear, a story. And I present to you that it's going to be a fictional story. And this is why. Nina started this long time ago. She's been telling people left and right, and the prosecution will have you believe that each and every one of those people ignore her. The prosecution will have you believe that her mother ignored her. You're going to see that time and time and time again, these people found that her story were lies. In fact, you're going to see for yourself that her story doesn't match. Contrary to what my colleague here said, her story has changed several times. If you remember back in the 80s and the 90s, TV station will have a show and there was a little ball that we had to follow and sing along. You all remember that? I'm going to ask you to follow the little ball. And this ball is going to be her lies. Because she lied and lied and lied and lied again. To the tune that sometimes everybody's so confused that we don't even know what this story is. As if I will tell you a story, you tell him, so on and so forth. By the time we get here, complete different story. Again, notice that it was said a story, not fact, because there are no facts whatsoever to support her story. By the way, no forensic evidence. Supposedly there's blood, nothing, no DNA, no nothing of this alleged continual abuse. You heard that she tried to protect her siblings. Another lie. Why? She leaves at 14 years of age. Gone from her house. To do what? We shall see. Gone for 2 years. Where is a 14-year-old doing? The evidence will show what she was doing. Not being abused, but being actual consensually having sex with men. That's what she's done. And now, perhaps, she's having sex with other men and accusing my client simply because he's a strict father. Don't make no mistake about it. You're not gonna do that here in this household. To protect her sibling, they say. And you're gonna hear that she's actually having sex with her sister. How's that protection? Story. And in her mind, she believes this story. So much so that she has accused my client time and time and time again. CPS have been in their house so many times, they can't even count. And every time, ruled out. She's a liar. School, she's lied. She lied. She lied. She lied. That's what she does. Regrettably, all it takes is a statement for us to be here in front of you guys. And I hope and pray that each and every one of you will see that that little ball makes no sense. There's no tune to this story. It's a fiction in her mind because it doesn't coincide with the evidence. Notice that I'm not supposed to present any evidence because it's not my burden. But we're going to present to you evidence so you can see my client is innocent. He hasn't done anything other than being a loving father. And for that, he's been prosecuted simply because an unruly child wants to have her way. I pray and I hope that each of you see past that. Because scripture tells me that a witness tells the truth until they're cross-examined. That's what's going to happen. You will see how her story is going to change. And you're going to see how she's not going to know what came, because that's what you do when you lie. You have to lie again to cover the previous lie. You will see that for yourself. And I hope and pray that you do. Scripture also tells me that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And no, that's not the truth in this case, it's Jesus. But listen to this. When a person tells their side, their truth, it does not change. It just does not change. Oh, well, I forgot this here. Oh, well, I didn't say this here. Oh, well, I was. When it's fiction, though, that's what happens. And that's what you will hear from Nina. Fiction. Stories that have no bearing to the truth whatsoever. And if it was so much so, her story will be backed up by the people that love her. People that at one time were against my client. They realized the true side of the story, her lies. You're going to hear from his spouse, the actual mother of Nina. You will hear from her. She loves her children. Trust me, when all this happened, started in 2007, you heard me right, this has been going on since 2007. You can do the math. It's been a long time. She was saying, you know what, kick you out, you out of here, go to jail, you can rot in hell, like any mother would. Then, reports start coming in. Yeah, this is not true. Ruled out. She tried again, kicked him out again. Report comes again. Nope, it's not true. Ruled out. How many times does my client have to go through this? And now she's going to come and testify and tell you this real side of the story. The story that Nina created in her brain, in her mind. She needs help. She truly needs help. Because the person that has all their factual attributes together don't come up with stuff like this simply to get back at a stepfather. When the evidence is going to show that her father has been so reckless that even smokes weed with her daughter, even does things that a father will never do. Perhaps in her mind, it's part of the story. Oh, let me blame this guy because he's doing it right. My father, on the other hand, he's hot. You're going to see that. I'm not making that up. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is long time coming that the story stops right here. No more. I pray that you have the courage when you go back into the room and do your duty, because you said that you will listen to the truth and you will listen to the evidence and judge it. Please listen careful to Nina. This little girl needs help and she tells stories. Try to get back at my client. A person with no criminal history, nothing. other than dismiss time and time and time and time again. This is why he decided to be here in front of you guys. You can put a stop to this story. You can put an end to this ordeal and this drama. Yes, the family has been destroyed, but it has not been by compliant. In fact, all of them still together, all of them except Nina. The only one that have left since 14. Comes back and leaves again. Comes back, brings. That's her story. That's what she does. You'll see this. My client thanks you. I thank you. And our founding fathers thank you because this is what they envisage when they say a jury of our peers will judge you. I pray to God that you listen to the evidence and you find my client once and for all not guilty. God bless you.
All right, state, call your first witness.
Attorney of the state calls Nina Sanchez.
And ladies and gentlemen, you may see sometimes people come through this door. It's because they're not reading the sign that says we're in jury trial. If you see someone coming through this door, because I'm alternate presiding judge this week, it may be people for me to sign documents from other court, but it has absolutely nothing to do with this case, okay? All right, if you'll take the stand here, please. All right, could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can have a seat. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the court report can hear and the ladies and gentlemen in the jury can hear. If you'll state your name for the record, please.
Nina Sanchez.
All right, state.
Good morning, Nina. Let me start by introducing you to the jury. How old are you today?
I am 26.
And when was your birthday?
May 11th,
And what year?
1997.
And are you working currently?
Yes.
Where do you work?
I'm a server downtown at a restaurant.
And where are you living?
I live here in an apartment with my daughter.
And by here you mean San Antonio?
Yes.
And you said you have a daughter. How old is she?
She is 6 years old.
And do you have any roommates or anything like that?
I live with my fiance.
And how long have you been living at your current apartment?
We just moved into a new apartment from an old apartment.
And let me jump into this. Nina, do you know Richard Thomas?
Yes, I do.
How do you know him?
He was my stepfather growing up.
When did you first meet Richard?
I believe you were around 5 or 6.
Do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point to him by and identifying him on article of clothing?
In his gray shirt.
Your Honor, the state would ask for an in-court identification of the defendant. And you said he was your stepfather. Was he in a relationship with your mother then?
Yes, he was.
And when did he first start dating your mother, I guess?
I believe around when I was 5 or 6 years old.
And have they do you know if they're still in a relationship?
From my current knowledge, I believe they're still married.
So they've gotten married since.
Yes.
And do you know when they got married?
I don't remember the year. I don't really recall. I can't remember at the moment.
Okay, that's not a problem. Now, when the defendant and your mother first started dating, did the defendant live with you?
Not at first.
About how long were they dating when he moved in?
I can't recall because I was little, so I didn't understand time span. But it felt like it moved pretty fast within the same year.
So you were still young when they moved in together?
Yes, for sure.
And who once he moved in, who was all living in the household?
It was me and my mom and my sister Jacqueline. I really don't remember how everything happened because everything did happen so fast. I remember being sent to my tia's for a good almost a year for my first year of school
And
because my mom was pregnant.
just for clarification, when you said tia, you meant your aunt, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay. And I'm sorry, why did you move in with your aunt?
My mom was pregnant with my brother, so she was about to have him. And they were just dealing with that when my aunt was helping out with me.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was 7.
So he moved in prior to you turning 7 years old.
Yes, prior.
And in the beginning, how would you describe your relationship with the defendant?
In the beginning, it was just meeting my mom's boyfriend. I kind of knew and understood what the energy was, even though I was young. So I was like, okay, because my father wasn't there no more. And then all of a sudden, transitioned.
When you say you knew how the energy was, what do you mean by that?
That my mom was dating somebody new.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was just observing most of the time, just how he was. And he was pretty cool at first.
How did he act around you and your sister?
Very fun.
What kind of things did y'all do together?
I just remember laughing a lot. Him just making us laugh a lot.
How did you feel having him in the house?
I was kind of hurt because my father wasn't there no more.
Was your father around when you were younger?
Yes, exclusively. My father had his own doings or his own wrongdoings, but he was most definitely there
Okay.
for me.
Okay. Did your relationship with the defendant change at any point?
Yes.
When would you say that it changed?
I would say around 7 years old.
Okay. And in what ways did it change?
It just changed because I started getting fearful of him due to physical harm and being touched in ways that I wasn't comfortable with.
Was there, when you say you were touched, how did he touch you?
A prime example was that one morning my mom had went to work and he had came to my room fully naked and he grabbed me from my bed while I had my pajamas on still, transferred me to his room, laid me down with him on him and my mom's bed, and it was dark in the room. And I felt his genitals on my back. And he started playing with my hair and it upset me and I kind of just moved away. And he got upset about that. And he punished me that day for it.
Let me break that down a little bit. So when did that incident first occur?
That happened, like I said, when I was 7. That happened at an apartment complex that we had moved in to all together, him, my mom, my sister, and me.
Do you recall which apartment complex that was?
I don't recall the apartment complex that was. I just remember the area it was in.
What area was that?
It was by Penn Road area, and I was going to Cable Elementary.
And is that in Bexar County, Texas?
Yes.
And you said that he picked you up from your bed and took you to his and your mom's bed.
Yes.
And you said you felt something?
Yes, I felt his genital part on my back.
And now when you were on the bed, were you face up or face down?
I was faced the opposite direction of him, so I'm like facing the room area where there's free room, and then he's facing my back. So my back to him.
So you were laying on your side then?
Yes, my side.
And when this was happening, do you, do you remember what the layout of the room was?
Yes, so you would walk in, the closet is on the left-hand side. And then on the wall, which would be to my right, was where the TV and all the movies were. And facing the closet was the bed against the wall where I would walk in. So as soon as I walk in, I see the bed on this side.
So when you were laying on your side and the defendant, and you felt the defendant's genitals against your back, what were you facing?
I was facing the TV.
Okay. And during this incident, was the defendant saying anything to you?
No,
Was he moving around in any certain type of way?
no,
So you just felt his genitals on your back?
yes, and he just started playing with my hair.
And at that time, did you feel whether the defendant's genitals were erect at that time?
I felt something wet on my back.
Okay. And what happened when you felt that wetness?
That's what upset me. And then he started playing with my hair, and that upset me more. Because I knew it wasn't okay or normal. It was very uncomfortable.
And you said you were clothed at the time, right?
Yes,
But the defendant was not.
the defendant was not.
And so then you got upset. What did you do?
I just kind of like moved my head so he can like get the hint to stop playing with my hair.
And what happened after that?
He got upset and punished me. His punishments were where we stand in the corner with our hands up for a very long time.
And did anything happen after that?
He got up to take a shower.
And was that the only time that he ever touched you like that? Or were there other
There were
times?
other times.
What was the next time that you can recall?
The next time I recall was at the Westway Apartments. I believe I was between the ages of either 8, 9, or 10. I was in the 3rd grade. I was sleeping in my brother and sister's room on the floor, facing the doorway. So if you were to come in, you're gonna see me laying this way with my feet facing the door on the floor. And I was in a deep sleep, and I had got awoken by the defendant checking to see if I peed. He was unzipping my pants and had felt me, and he was like, "I'm just checking to see if you peed."
Let me ask you, so you said you were between the ages of 8 and 10 at this time, right? And this might be a little bit embarrassing for you, but had you had a problem with wetting the bed at that age?
No.
Have you had any problems wetting the bed that you can recall?
No,
Was this kind of a regular thing that the defendant would go in to check to see if you'd wet the bed?
no,
So he just decided one day to check to see if you had peed yourself.
yes.
What were you wearing at the time?
I believe I was wearing my school clothes, I think.
And-
Because I didn't want to get dressed in the morning because I didn't like waking up early. And when it happened, I didn't know if it was a dream or not, so I left them alone. That way, when I wake up in the morning, if they're still unbuttoned, I would know it wasn't a dream.
Make sure you were wearing school clothes. Did you have a uniform that you were wearing at the time, or was it just random clothes that you were gonna wear? Okay. as the bottoms that you were wearing that he unzipped, were they jeans or,
I cannot recall.
but you do remember they had a zipper?
I remember that a zipper and a button.
And the defendant both unzipped and unbuttoned the pants?
Yes.
And when the defendant put his hands inside your pants to check if you had wet yourself, how did he touch you?
He had slid his hand and slid it inside my underwear and had just a quick swipe and swiped out.
So he touched you under the clothes.
Yes.
Did his hand make skin to skin contact with your genitals?
Yes.
And other than telling you that he was checking to see if you had wet the bed, did he say anything else at that time?
No, after he was done, he had proceeded to get up and walked away. Went back to bed.
Do you remember what the defendant was wearing at that time?
I do not. It was very blurry.
And you said you were in a deep sleep when this happened, is that right?
Yes, I was asleep.
Okay.
I was definitely kind of foggy when it was happening, hence why I chose to leave my pants alone, so I knew in the morning if I was dreaming or not.
And when you were woken up, was the sun out or was it dark outside?
It was still kind of dark outside, I believe.
And was there anybody else in the room at that time?
It was my sister laying across from me, so we're laying opposite, and then my younger brother and sister as well, asleep in their beds.
And all of your siblings are younger than you, correct?
Yes.
Did the defendant check them to see if they had wet the bed?
No,
It was just you,
it was just me.
the oldest of all the siblings.
Yes.
And you said the defendant just walked out. Did he do anything else before he left the room?
No.
And did you tell anybody about these two incidents?
No, not at the time. I had told my mother at the end of the day from school that day, because she saw that my pants were unbuttoned as well when I woke up. We both saw it at the same time, so she instantly had asked me, why are your pants unbuttoned? And I remembered, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, that did happen. And I kind of just got scared, and I told my mom, oh, it was me. I was ready, about to start getting ready for school, whatever. And I was just contemplating all that day through school, whether I should tell my mom or not. And I had came to the conclusion that I should. And I told her in the car while she picked me up.
Why were you scared to tell your mom at first?
I didn't know if she was gonna believe me or not.
And then, but you eventually told her in the car.
I did.
And what happened when she told your mom?
She got very upset. And she, when we went home, she had took him into the room, took the defendant into the room, and they had spoke, and things broke out into an argument. And I believe she had kicked him out for that day.
Do you remember if your mom told anybody about these incidents, the police or anybody?
Yeah, no, my mom didn't.
Um, uh, was, was CPS ever involved with your family because of these incidences?
Yes.
Why did they get involved?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
That'll be sustained.
Um, what, what did you do once CPS got involved?
I had told CPS only what had happened besides my mother. And they just started taking action from there. I assume because he had ended up going to jail for a few months.
Did, what did you tell CPS happened
Exactly what I said today.
about the two incidences where you touched you?
Mhm.
And while CPS was involved with your family, where were you staying?
I believe I was with my nana, my grandma at first, and my aunts. They had taken care of me and my sister for a while.
And were you ever returned to your home with your mom?
Yes, eventually.
And was the defendant around at the home at that time?
I believe no, it was not.
And after CPS got involved, what happened?
So like I had said, he had ended up going to jail for a few months. And then my mom had hired a bond lawyer, and her and the defendant's mother just kind of bribed me and guilt tripped me into having a confession statement being taped by the bond lawyer, saying that I was just lying about the incidents.
So you said that they bribed and coerced you. What did they do?
At the time, I was a really big Hannah Montana fan, so the mother of the defendant got me a bunch of Hannah Montana stuff for my birthday. And my mom just guilt tripped me, just kind of just reminding me how I didn't have my father and how it felt for my brothers and sisters. And that just hurt me, so it worked.
And they told you that they would, for example, buy you the things in order for you to take back.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you take back your statement based on those things that were said to you?
Yes.
And after you came out with these allegations, did your mom break off the relationship with the defendant?
I don't believe she did.
But the defendant wasn't at the house at that
Yes, he was not at the house.
time. After you you made your statement, taking back your original statement, did your mom ever start a relationship with the defendant again?
Yes, she did.
If you can remember, how much time passed between you taking back your statement and the defendant being around the home again?
I would say probably around a good 3 months.
And was the defendant just coming around the house, or was he back living in the home with you?
He was with his mother. He was with his mother at first and just kind of slowly transitioned back with my mom into the home.
So obviously you came up, you brought up these allegations against the defendant, and then you took them back, and the defendant was back in the home. How was your relationship with him after all of that?
There was no relationship. There was no bond. I couldn't stand him.
How would he act around you?
He was very nice at first.
And what do you mean by nice?
He left me alone. And he apologized
What did he apologize for?
for physically harming me and my sister.
And so what age were you at this time?
I believe 10.
And how long did that, I guess, peace between you and the defendant last?
I cannot recall at the moment.
Was that the end of any sexual incidences between you and the defendant?
Yes. The end of that for a while.
For a while?
Yes.
Did anything else occur?
When I was 14.
At that time, was the defendant still strict with you and your siblings?
Yes, he was.
What kind of, when you say he's strict, what kind of things did he do that made you think he was strict?
But he still definitely had his punishment. He had no empathy. So that's what's strict to me, is not having any empathy and just expecting too much of a child. Really played favoritism between his 2 children with my mom and me and my sister, because we were from a different father. And so, sometimes I would just ask for a cup of water and would be denied.
So the defendant had other children that weren't your blood siblings,
They're my half. My half. Still my siblings regardless, but half.
of course. And so he would bring them around the home, around you and your sister and your other sibling?
No, we all live together.
Okay. And you said that he would treat them differently, like what kinds of things?
They could have candy, we could not. They could have waffles. I had to eat a sandwich for breakfast. Things like that, of that nature. They could watch a movie. I cannot.
And did he ever tell you why he was treating them differently than he would treat you and your sister?
No.
And so you said something else occurred when you turned 14. What happened?
An incident had happened that had led to a relationship between me and the defendant behind my mother's back.
You said an incident happened. What happened?
So the incident was, my mom was out of the house. I do not recall where she was. We were in the care and supervision of the defendant, me, my sister, and my 2 sisters and my brother. And we were all just play fighting, all of us. We're all just having a good time. And the defendant was chasing us all around. And I had my own room at the time. So we kept going back to my room, me and all the kids and the defendants. And then the kids started kind of just like getting bored. So one by one, they were just going to their room like, okay. And me and the defendant just kept roughhousing. And between that, it was getting to a point where, while we were roughhousing, he was over me and I was under him. And we were just tickling each other and things just got very feely, touchy. We just started dry rubbing our body parts against each other. And it was such an
Okay. Yeah. Were you still living at the same apartment at this time?
no, it was not.
Where were you living?
I was living, I don't remember the exact address, but it was on Piper's Lane here in Bear County, and it was a house.
And you said you were all play fighting, then it was just you and the defendant, and he ended up on top of you. Where in the house were you and the defendant at this time?
So now we were on one of the couches by the living room. We were not in my room. So it was like a living room, and then there's a big open area before you get to the kitchen. And there was couches in that open area. So we were on one of the couches. And yeah, we were on one of the couches in that area.
Do you remember what time of day this was?
I believe it was evening for sure.
And the defendant, you said the defendant was on top of you. You were laying on the couch, correct?
Yes.
How were you laying?
So I was laying on my stomach.
And then the defendant got on top of you,
Yes, that's how we ended up being.
and so you were basically face down on the couch, and the defendant was facing your back.
Yes.
And again, you're 14 years old at this time, correct?
Yes.
Had you had any boyfriends or anything before this day?
Going through middle school, I was most definitely dating. I had boyfriends, I had girlfriends. I was just kind of experimenting, but nothing sexual. It was more just very innocent, like meeting up in the hallways, kissing, on the cheek and hugging, and just for the title, really.
So, I mean, you were a teenager at the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I was going through puberty.
And were you weren't sexually active at this time?
No, I was not.
Okay. And then you said for other things happening.
Yes.
What happened at that point?
So at that point, we started dry rubbing each other. And he was just whispering in my ear, like how this was wrong. But we didn't stop, we continued. And then, from there, it got taken to him and my mom's room, which is where the garage used to be, where the people who owned the house before, we were renting it. But they had turned it into a room, so we're in there. And
Did the defendant take you there to the bedroom, or did you walk with him to the
I
bedroom?
walked him.
What happened once you entered the bedroom?
I can't remember every detail after that. I just remember him getting very more touchy-feely, and then he had pulled out his private part and he told me to lay on the floor, and he proceeded to aim his genital to my face, and he ejaculated all over my face.
And were you clothed or unclothed at the time?
I was close.
And did the defendant have clothes on as well?
Yes, he did.
So, and when he ejaculated, how, did he have to pull his pants down or?
He had shorts at the time and he just kind of pulled his shorts to where his shorts were loose, so his genital was out of it.
And during this incident, what did you hear while the defendant was ejaculating? How was he breathing hard? Was he saying anything?
I don't recall.
You said this was the incident that started a, I guess, in your words, secret relationship with the defendant.
Yes,
Was it a sexual relationship that began?
it was definitely sexual and emotional.
When you say it was emotional, what do you mean by that?
Because things were told to me that to me are very severe things to just say to anybody, let alone a 14-year-old girl.
What kinds of things?
He had told me that if my mom ended up, passing away, that we would get married.
So by the defendant's own statements, he wanted to be in a relationship with you while he was in a relationship with your mother. So after that first incident in your parents' bedroom, what happened next?
So that was Christmas Eve, I believe, or the day before Christmas Eve, sorry. The next day was Christmas Eve, so we were all around family, nothing could really be done after that. I do not recall how the next incident happened, in which order. I just can recall each individual incident within the time frame of December to February.
So your relationship with the defendant, and again, the sexual relationship with the defendant,
Right,
lasted from around Christmas time to February.
yes.
Did anything happen? Did anything else happen around Christmas time?
No,
So what's the next incident that you can remember?
the next incident that I can remember was, I think it was the night I had lost my virginity to the defendant. My mom was in the shower and we were on the same exact couch where everything had started. And we both consented to proceed with sexual relations, and he proceeded to put his genital into mine and penetrate.
Let me back up just a little bit. Now, you said that you both consented in this situation, is that right?
Yes,
And you're 14 at this time, correct?
correct.
And do you know how old the defendant was at that time?
I believe he was 30 or between the ages of 30 to 33,
So he was much older than you.
for sure.
And so you were both on the couch when this started, right?
Yes.
What happened while the two of you were on the couch that led to?
I do not recall. I do not recall. I just recall us both consenting.
And you said, you had sex on the couch with the defendant?
No, we were standing up.
But in the living room?
Yes.
When you say the defendant used his genital to penetrate your genital, what exactly did he use to penetrate your genital?
He used his penis to penetrate my vagina.
You said your mom was in the shower at that time. Where was everybody else?
I believe in their rooms asleep or being ready to, for bed, just being in bed.
Do you remember if the defendant wore a condom when he had sex with you?
No, he did not.
How long did it last?
It didn't last very long. I do not recall. I would say between the span of 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes.
Yes.
Was the defendant saying anything while he was having sex with you?
I do not recall.
You're 26 today, so this was 12 years ago now.
Yes.
Well, while you were having sex, or while the defendant was having sex with you, what did you feel?
I did feel pain since it was my first time.
Prior to the defendant having sex with you, had you seen an erect penis in your life?
Through the internet, I did,
But not personally.
not personally.
And did the defendant ejaculate in this incident as well?
No, not that I recall.
Why did it stop?
I believe my mom was getting out of the shower and we both got startled.
And then what happened once the two of you stopped?
We both proceeded to just go to bed. I believe. I don't recall the rest of that night, honestly.
And your relationship with the defendant continued on after that, is that right?
Yes.
Did you have sex with him on another occasion?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't remember the date. I do remember it transitioning and from January. I think we're ready at the end of January, going into February. My mom had a kneecap replacement. So the house had flooded from rain and she had slipped and fell on that kneecap. So she needed to go to the hospital to get it checked out. So then she went to the hospital and we were left under the defendant's supervision, me and my siblings. And we proceeded to have relations that night.
So this was the night that your mom entered the hospital.
Yes.
What happened during this incident?
Um, well, we had some free time, so we were in my room. My siblings were put to bed already, and we were in my room. It was just the window open, and
Were you sharing a room with your siblings at this time?
no, I had my own room at this time. And we were just up talking endlessly, and I don't remember how it transitioned to that point, but we ended up having relations. I don't recall if he ejaculated.
What were the two of you talking about?
And we were talking about a lot of things. I feel like I can only recall like a few things, and one of those things was him telling me how my mom is just crazy, like she's just a crazy woman, like in a good way, like a crazy lover. But then he was like, but you're like your mom. You're like crazier of that, some sort of that nature, something like that. That's all I could remember. It's what stuck with me that whole night.
So you brought up the sexual relationship between you and himself.
I don't know if he was referring to what he was referring to. It stuck with me because I didn't understand. To this day, I don't.
And when you were talking with the defendant, where were the two of you?
We were on my bed in my room.
Were you both laying down or were you sitting on the bed?
We were sitting on the bed.
I'm sorry,
We were sitting on the bed.
sitting on the bed?
Yes.
Was he sitting next to you?
Yes, we were sitting next to each other.
And you said one thing led to another and you had relations. What do you mean when you say you had relations?
So we proceeded to do what we did from the prior time, where he put his penis into my vagina and penetrated.
So you had, the two of y'all had sex.
Yes.
And how were you positioned while the two of you were having sex?
I do not recall.
Do you remember about how long it lasted?
I do not recall.
But during this incident, your mom wasn't home.
Exactly. Hence why I don't recall, because we were really like just in the moment.
Sorry if you said this, but you don't recall whether the defendant ejaculated or not.
I do not recall.
Did anything interrupt and stop this time, or
No.
did the defendant end up sleeping in the bed with you that night?
I ended up sleeping with him in his bed, in their bedroom, in my parents' bedroom, with my siblings on the bed as well.
So all of you slept together. Do you know if were your siblings asleep on the defendant and your mom's bed while the two of y'all were in your room?
Yes.
When was that the last time that you and the defendant had sex together?
No. We have one more time that I recall.
When did that happen?
I believe my mom was out and my aunt was helping out with us at the time. So my brothers and sisters were in school and my my aunt was picking them up. So once again, we had the house to ourselves. And this time I had proceeded to go and wake the defendant. And the defendant was asleep from work. And we consented to have sex.
Again, you were 14 when this happened.
Yes,
correct?
I was 14.
Were you in school at the time?
I was being homeschooled. Yes, I was being homeschooled.
Why were you being homeschooled?
My mom just didn't like having me in school because she didn't like the fact that I was already dating, and she just thought I wasn't paying attention in class, and that I was just focused too much on the things that didn't matter.
And who was teaching you at this time then?
In school,
Yes.
nobody. I was just on the computer by myself.
Then you were home. You were home pretty much all day then.
Mhm.
The defendant was asleep at this time.
Yes,
Where was he working?
Jack in the Box.
And did he work overnight shifts or?
I do not recall. I believe he worked day shifts, actually.
So is it normal for him to be asleep in the middle of the day?
Yes. He still had his uniform on, I believe.
Had he already returned from work that day or was he?
Yes, he had returned from work and took a nap.
What time, at this time period, what time did your siblings get out of school?
They were getting out, I believe, around 2:30 to 3 or 4. I think they would get home by 4 by the time they'd get picked up. And
Okay. So on this day, around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock is when you woke up the defendant.
yes,
And I'm sorry if you said this already, but he was asleep in his bedroom.
yes, he was asleep in his bedroom.
Why did you go wake him up?
Because I was already, my emotions and my sexuality was already starting to open and be embraced because of the defendant. And so I was really just exploring, and I just was just open, and my emotions were messed with, you know?
So you woke him up because you wanted to have sex with him.
Yeah,
And did the two of you have sex that day?
we did.
And again, you were 14 at this time.
I was 14.
Did the two of you have sex in the bed? His bed?
Not on the bed. It's just my hands were just on the bed. We were standing up.
So you had sex standing up. How were you positioned during this time?
His face is facing my back, and my face is facing the bed. And like I said, my hands were on the bed.
Okay. Was the defendant wearing a condom at this time?
No,
When you woke him up, what did you say to him?
I think I had just asked him to have sex with me.
And how did the defendant react to that?
He was still kind of in a sleep, and he just kind of like nodded his head and proceeded to unbuckle his pants.
During any of these three incidences that you had sex with the defendant, did he ever say no or tell you that he shouldn't or anything like that?
The first time that had happened, what happened in the room before Christmas, he had took me to my room after the fact, and kind of just said we should never do that again. because it's not right to my mother. And not to tell her because it would break her heart.
That was the first incident that the two of you had sex.
That was just the first incident.
There was two more incidences after.
Yeah, and he never said anything to that matter ever again after that.
So after that one time, he never said, this is wrong, we shouldn't do this.
Mhm.
Did you ever threaten him to have sex with you?
No,
Now, taking you back to this, the last incident. Did the defendant ejaculate?
yes,
What did he ejaculate on or into?
he did not ejaculate into me. I don't recall where he ejaculated at. I don't recall if it was the floor, if it was on my back, the bed. I don't recall.
But you do remember him ejaculating? Did he say anything to you after he was done?
No, I think he was just asking like where everybody was.
What did you do after that?
Just, I think I just went about like my normal routine after that, because my mom and my aunt and my siblings were making their way home already.
Did you tell anybody about these times that you had sex with the defendant?
No, I did not at that time.
Why not?
I just knew nobody would believe me.
Did your, after that last incident, did your relationship with the defendant continue?
I believe just for a little while until we had got into a dispute
A dispute about what?
about my real father, my biological father.
How did that come up?
I believe the energy between me and the defendant was kind of off, and it was bothering me. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to reach out to. So I tried calling my father, and the defendant had caught me, and he got very upset about that, saying how he's been the father this whole time. And that just kind of triggered me, because it's like, how could you say that to a 14-year-old girl you're having secret relations with? But how does the father figure still even matter to you? That doesn't make any sense. And I just knew it was all kinds of wrong and weird and crazy, and I was fed up with it, and I was fed up with myself feeding into that and that situation. And so I kind of just distanced myself from him that night, and I was very, very, very upset. And my sister could see it on my face, and I was upset. She felt my energy, and she just proceeded to ask me, like, what's wrong with you? This isn't normal. I never see you like this.
And that was your sister?
That was my sister Jacqueline, yes. And I finally cracked to her and told her everything. She was the first one I told everything to. And she wrote it all down in a letter, I think within that same week, and handed it to my mom.
So let me stop you right there. So you told your sister about everything that had occurred between you and the defendant,
Yes, everything, all the details.
and then she turned over that information to your mom?
Yes, she said everything I stated to her, she stated it all in the letter, gave it to my mom.
How long after the last time that you had sex with the defendant, how long after that did you tell your sister about these?
I don't recall. I would probably maybe say, from what I recall, my perception, it felt like 2 weeks.
And did you ever talk to your mom about these after she found out?
Well, that's the thing is she was very upset and it was a major dispute between me, my mother and the defendant. My
What-
mom,
What did your mom do once she was brought this information?
she separated the both of us. And
You and the defendant?
yes, and she closed the door to my room and just questioned me. And we were in there for a good while.
Did she ever report any of this to anybody, to your knowledge?
She had kicked him out that night and she asked me that night afterwards if I wanted to go with the cops to this.
And what did you say?
I said no,
Why not?
because I'm used to saying no for my mom.
What do you mean?
I'm used to sacrificing my happiness for hers. Because I know he makes her happy. I know she really truly loves him.
So you didn't go to the police to keep your mom happy?
Yes, most definitely. And to keep the family together for my siblings.
Why did you feel like it was your responsibility to keep the family together?
My mom always made me feel that way. It was in my hands, I had the power to make it or break it, and it wasn't in my heart to tear my brother and sister away from their father like I was done with mine.
Did things change in the household after your mom found out about your relationship with the defendant?
Most definitely.
In what ways?
I was able to go to my friends' houses. The defendant really wasn't strict on me anymore, really didn't talk to me, we didn't speak to each other. My mom was supervising us in our every room. I was not allowed alone with him. I wasn't allowed to wear certain things around him or just at all. And then when I had went to school, things just started getting out of hand.
Did your relationship change with your siblings?
No, it didn't.
And did the defendant continue to live in the home with you?
My mom had kicked him out for I would say almost the whole summer. Or no, not the whole summer, a few months before the summer. And then she brought him back in. So it's probably a good 3 months he was gone. And then he was there with us for the whole summer. And he just stayed, never left.
Okay. And how did having him around affect you?
It felt like I was still being ignored. The whole point of giving in to him in the first place, within my mind, was trying to just make a point to my mom, like, this is what happens when you leave a weirdo, a pedophile around the house. This is what happens. I was just very angry with her. And she just wasn't doing her job to protect me. And I was definitely robbed of my innocence in my childhood. And I just kind of started realizing all that, and I just started getting angry. I started getting very angry.
Did you act out towards your mother?
No, I was more like silent, angry, just contemplating and just like kind of planning what I can do to get away from this whole situation.
And how did you eventually get away from the situation?
I ran away at 16.
Why did you feel the need to run away?
Because I had got triggered and I was done with being uncomfortable in my own home.
Where did you go?
My friend Yancy had her and her mom picked me up early in the morning, and we kind of just had a meeting point. We met there and they just picked me up from there and took me and just kind of hid me out.
Did your friend know about the situation that you were in?
Yes, that's why she picked me up.
And how long did you live with, I'm sorry, you said Yancy?
Yes. I lived with her probably a good month because she had me meet another friend of hers who, because her and her mom were going through their own set of complications with her stepfather. And she was like, I don't want you here going through that again. So, I have a friend who's really caring. Her and her mom, they help a lot of people. So they had me go with her friend Cassie and Cassie's mom.
How long? Let me ask you a different way. You were 16 when you first ran away, correct?
Yes.
Did your mom and the defendant ever come looking for you?
I believe I did get found at 17.
At 17 years old, you were.
At 17, a few months before I was going to turn 18.
And when you say you were found, who found you?
The cops did.
Yeah, may we approach real quick?
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all your lunch break at this point in time because I never like to have someone question a witness and the other person doesn't have a chance to question them and have it occur all at the same time. So I'm going to give you all your lunch break and we will be back here at 1:30. And I'm putting it at 1:30 because I still have other things on my docket to take care of. There are plenty of places downtown that you can walk to. Make sure that your badges are visible because sometimes attorneys will be talking about cases. They may even be talking about this case, who knows? But I don't want you to be influenced by anyone. You're not to do any investigation. You're not to look at anything involving this case. Everything that you need to know about this case is to come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, so the rule has been invoked. What that means is you cannot discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense. Do you understand? And you're not allowed to watch anything or view anything. Do you understand? All right. We're going to be back at 1:30, so just make sure that you're back here at 1:30, okay? All right, you may step down.
And then the other one also.
All right, so is that a lay witness?
It's a former employee of CPS, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so We will be back here at 1:30, and then once those witnesses are here, I'll make that announcement to them. State, when do you expect to close?
We should be able to rush our case in chief today.
All right, so defense, you now know that the state is probably going to rest their case in chief today. So if you have witnesses, you'll need them here tomorrow by 1:30. Do you have any witnesses here today?
I don't have any witnesses today. Yeah.
All right, so make sure you have witnesses here tomorrow by 1:30, and whatever time we finish today with the state, that's the time we finish today. And then I will anticipate that we'll do closing arguments on Friday. I always like to give the jurors an idea of when they may be able to receive the case. So if nobody have any objections, I will let them know I anticipate maybe they'll be getting the case by Friday just so they can make plans. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, and I notice that one of the jurors has notes. I really don't recommend that you take notes because you are not allowed to use those notes when you begin deliberation. So if you're taking notes, that means that maybe you're not perhaps looking at witnesses and that type of thing. So I sort of discourage that because again, when I let you know it's time for you to begin your deliberations, you're not going to be able to take any notes in the back with deliberations at all. Does everyone understand? All right, state is still your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. So yeah, we last left off that you had ran away and then you were discovered by the police. Is that correct?
Yes.
What happened once the police made contact with you?
They showed up to where I was residing and they proceeded to take me back to where I was living, which was Piper's Lane, where I had ran away from.
Back to your mother's residence.
Yes, and she wasn't residing there any longer, so they had to figure out where she was residing recent. And they found her address and they actually had called her and she came to pick me.
And where did she take you?
She had taken me to where she was residing in the home, and I think she just made me a dinner that night.
Once you were returned, who else was living at the house?
So there was her and my siblings, the defendant and the defendant's mom, and the defendant's mom's husband.
And again, how old were you when you were discovered by the police?
17.
And did anything else happen after that?
No,
Are you still living with your mother and the defendant?
no, she had me, the same night that they had found me, she had me just go back to where I was, and I've never lived with her.
So since that day you were returned, you haven't lived with them. And again, you're 26 now.
Yes, correct.
Have you had any contact with the defendant since that day?
No,
Have you had any contact with your mother since that day?
I did, with my mom.
How often do you talk to your mom?
The last time I talked to her was in 2019.
And to your knowledge, are the defendant and your mother still in a relationship?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Have you had contact with your siblings over the years?
And no, I have not.
And this happened. Well, the last incident you are saying happened 12 years ago. Why are you still proceeding with this case?
I feel like that I never really got my justice from it, and what justice looks like for me is just being here seeking my truth today. And I also feel that I'm not looking for jail time. I just believe he should be registered so that way it's prevented from happening to the next person.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. It's fair to say, is it not, Nina, that you have changed your story several times?
Yes, it's fair to say,
Why is that?
because I was determined to speak my truth, but I was too young and I was manipulated into withholding my truth.
This is the second time I noticed that you say my truth. Is it subjected to what you believe?
It's not what I believe, it's what was done to me. It happened to my body.
According to what you believe?
Correct.
Okay. Let me get this straight. Last time any sexual contact happened, according to you, was when you were 14 years of age.
Correct.
Is that your statement in front of the jury right here?
Yes.
When you were 14 years of age? Nothing else after 14 years of age?
Nothing else after 14.
What age would that have been? What year would that have been when you were 14?
Let's see, give me a moment to trace back. 23. (2012),
You were born in 1997, correct?
correct.
So if 1997, you add 14, that would be 2011. Is that correct?
Then I miscounted one, correct.
I just want to make sure that we're all straight.
Okay.
2011, correct? That you would have been 14 years of age.
Yes.
You know, may I approach?
Yes.
Can I have the indictment? Count number 4, what year is that?
Right here.
Right here, count number 4,
2012.
2012. Count number 5, what year is that?
2012.
So in 2012, you were how old?
2012, I was, if I was 14 in 2011, then I was 15 in 2012.
15 years of age, correct?
Correct.
Would you be surprised if I told you that nobody in the families of your siblings recalls any physical harm by my client?
Objection, Your Honor. Proper impeachment.
That'll be sustained.
You stated, and I quote, that there was sexual harassment, physical harm to your siblings. Did you not say that?
Objection, Your Honor. Proper impeachment.
That's overruled.
My sibling, my sister, not my siblings.
Okay, so Jacqueline,
Yes.
is she the one that you're stating to the jury that my client physically presented harm to her?
Yes, he's caused fidget in her head before.
Okay. Have you caused her harm?
I did. I was not a good sister. I was being taught violence from the defendant.
In fact, you were also taught how to have sex with her, weren't you?
Objection. Improper impeachment.
Overruled.
Go ahead, answer.
I did not have sex with my sister.
So you're here telling the jury that you and Jacqueline, you didn't touch her inappropriately.
Objection. Ask and answer.
Overruled.
You didn't touch her. I just want to make sure. Did you touch her inappropriately?
I never touched her inappropriately.
But we hear that you caused her harm.
Yes, I did cause her physical harm.
Did you tell that to the investigators?
I don't believe so. I don't believe I was asked about that.
Yeah, no, I can't find it.
Yeah, I wasn't asked about that
Okay.
because I came to report something completely different from that.
Earlier in your statement, you stated that my client was fully clothed, actually, you were fully clothed and you felt his wetness. You remember that?
Yes,
How's that possible?
because his genital, his penis was touching my back and his penis was already wet.
But you were fully clothed.
My pajamas that I was wearing at the time were very thin. I could feel it seep through.
I'm glad you mentioned pajamas because earlier you stated that in one occasion you were wearing your school clothing. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Did you tell that to anybody during this investigation?
I do not recall if I had explained it as my school clothing.
May I approach your honor?
Yes.
Now, please do not read anything. This is just to refresh your recollection. Tell me if in any of those you can find where you told anybody that you were wearing your school clothing.
No, I did not. That's not me.
Thank you for your candor, Miss.
Yes.
Based on that, is it fair to say that there's a lot of facts that you have omitted, but you have told them today?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Based on that we know that you didn't tell anybody of these investigators that you were wearing clothes, your school clothing.
Mhm.
That's different. Today you're saying that you were wearing clothing. Isn't it a fact that you have omitted the same type of facts over and over and over to this investigation?
Objection, Your Honor, improper impeachment.
Overruled.
Yes, I have said
Okay.
that over and over.
My question was, can you read the question to the witness?
Based on that we know that you didn't tell anybody or these of these investigators that you were wearing clothes, your school clothes, that's different today. You're saying that you were wearing clothing, isn't that a fact? That you have admitted the same type of facts over and over to this investigator?
Your Honor, we object to that question based on a misrepresentation of the complaining witness's testimony, prior testimony, as well as to the sidebar.
Overruled.
It just seemed that I missed out those, it being school clothing. But yes, I did say over and over about being in clothes.
Do you not think that's an important fact?
It is very much an important fact. Yes, I agree.
But yet you had never said it to anyone except here today.
No, I did not.
How many times have you told your story?
I cannot recall.
You cannot recall.
Mhm.
Would it be fair for the jury to know that you have changed your story?
From when I was young to an adult woman, yes, it would be fair.
In fact, it appears that it's getting more events and more events as time goes by. Would you agree with that statement?
Of course.
You stated that you were sent away to Tia. What's her Tia's name?
Grace.
Grace? So based on your testimony, you went there twice?
No, I went with my aunt Grace first. Then when CPS got involved, I went with my different aunts. I have 5 different aunts.
Okay. So there are 2 different aunts. When you went with Grace, how old were you?
I was in my 7-year-old bracket.
You were 7 years of age. What year would that be?
I cannot recall right now. I don't want to calculate.
You don't remember when you were 7 years of age?
I don't remember the year.
Okay.
So
According to your statement, nothing happened to you until the year 2006. Is that correct?
2006, I'm trying to see how old I was. Yes, correct.
By that time, you had spoken with Maribel Chapa, have you not?
I don't recall my middle child.
You don't recall. You know, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you again to read this for yourself. Don't say anything out loud. It's to refresh your recollection.
I recall.
You remember Michelle Chapa? Do you remember telling her a date?
I did not recall. I just remember telling her I didn't want to go home.
How many times have you told her that you had had sexual encounters with my client?
I only told her that once because she questioned me why I didn't want to go home.
Okay, again, you know, may I approach?
Yes.
This is just to refresh your recollection.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna ask you to read that for yourself.
Thank you. I don't recall still. I'm sure I did though. I just remember.
You told her 3 times,
I mean, if it's stating this, then yes. Let's see.
not once, but 3 times.
Correct.
And after that, what happened?
CPS got involved.
In fact, multiple times CPS got involved, did it not?
Yes, they did.
And the story got bigger and bigger and bigger, did it not?
The story didn't get bigger. It got the story, then it got diffused, then it came back, and then it got diffused. It was back and forth between lying and not lying.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Statement, please. Now, you didn't see a date on that report, did you? I'm gonna ask you, what day is that on count number 1?
May 11th,
Of what year?
2006.
2006. So this is right before you spoke with Michelle Chapa, is it not?
Okay, yes.
Yes?
I don't recall the year that I had spoke to her. So.
You didn't tell her a year, did you? But yet here we have an indictment. Do you remember in 2006 on a specific date? Is that possible?
I mean, yeah, it is possible. I'm a child.
But you don't remember that you didn't tell her a date.
I don't remember telling her.
In fact, earlier your testimony stated that after he was done, he will take showers. You remember that?
Yes,
And this is during the same time when you were 7 years of age in 2006, 7 around.
mhm,
You remember that?
right.
Now approach your honor.
Yes.
Again, so you can recollect
Yes, thank you.
or refresh your recollection. Tell just for yourself. You didn't tell Michelle that, did you?
What exactly was that?
That he would take showers.
No, because she was in the courtroom.
Now,
I had to describe in detail everything.
closer in time, you forget that special detail. Years later, he on trial. Now he's taking showers after he's done with you. You find that odd?
I did not find that odd because one, I didn't say taking showers every time. So I feel like my words are being manipulated right now. I said that one incident when he first picked me up from my room to his room.
Do you mean your truth is being altered?
No, my.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
I withdraw.
All right, so everyone, the court reporter can only take down one person at a time. So let's remember that. Ask your next question.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you remember speaking with April Titus, Detective Titus?
I do not remember.
Do you remember speaking with Detective Escarano?
Sounds familiar.
In fact, would you be surprised if the statements are completely different?
No, I'm very surprised at all.
Okay, so your story again has gotten progressive as year goes by.
Most definitely.
You remember more things.
No, I don't remember more things. I'm just getting braver and braver.
Well, for one, you didn't remember the shower incident in 2007.
I
but you
did remember that. I just didn't mention it. I mentioned the bigger parts because the shower isn't the problem. It was the problem of being touched. That's what was big to me in my mind as a child. So of course I didn't speak about details that didn't matter.
Okay. Is that what happened with story changes? You have to keep changing it to make it more believable?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained.
Prosecutor asked you next time, and you said, well, I was 8, 9, or 10. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That's 3 years difference.
Big time. So you can see why it's hard for me to recollect the important details and put them all together in a sequence.
Man, you're telling this jury that my client did something to you. You can even pinpoint the actual year.
Objection, Your Honor, sidebar.
That'll be overruled.
I was a child.
That's either 2005, 2006, 2007, ma'am.
I don't keep count of calendars as a child. I just remember what happened to me.
The prosecutor asked you, did you tell anyone? Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you said no.
yes, I did not tell anyone at the beginning.
But then you said, I told my mom.
I had told my mom that when,
All right, just one moment. When either attorney makes an objection, just stop speaking, and then I'll make a ruling. And then if you have a question as to whether or not you can answer, just ask me, okay? All right, what is the objection?
Object to the sidebar, Your Honor. There's no question asked.
Overruled.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
You stated earlier that you didn't tell anyone, but then you changed your story and said, no, but I told my mom.
Yes, I didn't go and tell anybody exclusively anything. What happened was the date, that incident, that specific incident, I ended up telling my mom.
So you lied to your mom.
I had lied to her.
Argument.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I had told her, I had lied to her during the morning and the day until I came to school. And I came home from school.
Now, this is your mother. Why wouldn't she believe you?
Because she would never believe me.
Your mother.
Yeah, my mother.
Is that your truth, how you see it?
That's what was done.
How old were you when you opened your Twitter account?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
I don't even recall opening a Twitter account until I was out of the house.
You were out of the house. Is that when you left?
Yes.
Okay. Now, approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Earlier, I asked you, when you left the house, you said you were 16.
Correct.
Let me show you what has been marked as defendant exhibit number 1.
Your Honor, we'd object to this being shown to the defendant. The defense has not shown it to the state. We don't know what's being used to refresh
All right.
recollection.
That will be overruled.
Yeah, this is a fake.
Don't speak of it.
I'm sorry.
Just, I'm gonna ask you whether you know what that document purports to be.
A fake profile.
Does it appear to be altered in any way, shape, or form?
Most definitely.
And do you have personal knowledge as to the contents of that page?
I do have personal knowledge and I had got very upset because that's not me. That was made up.
So that is not your Twitter account.
No, that is not. I don't use my last name on my accounts.
But at what age did you open it?
And that was a Facebook. That wasn't Twitter.
Was it you or was it not you?
That was not me.
Okay. So in 2011, you didn't write that you are hot fox for sex.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation and improper impeachment under Rule 412.
That'll be sustained.
How old would you have been in 2011?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, no problem.
$15. I'm 15.
Perhaps 14?
15. I calculated 15.
So you stated, and I quote, that you opened your Twitter account when you were 16.
I didn't open a Twitter account at 16.
You said that you opened it when you left.
Not when I left, when I was out of the house. And when I was out of the house, I was out of the house for the rest after that. So I would say I opened my first Twitter account around 18, 19.
And you were very active in social media, weren't you?
Yes, still am.
Still am. Now, approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Let me show you what has been marked as defendant's exhibit number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm gonna ask you whether you know what those documents purport to be.
My social media,
Do you have personal knowledge as to the content of the documents?
of course.
And does it appear to be altered in any way, shape, or form?
No, it does not.
And are those actual accurate representation of what it shows?
Yes.
At this time, I'm gonna tender to the state for their perusal and review.
Your Honor, we'd object to exhibits 2, 3, 4, and 5 being admitted into evidence due to relevance and improper impeachment under Texas Rule of Evidence 412.
All right, may I see the exhibits, please?
At this time, the defendant would like to introduce into evidence exhibits 2, 3, 4, and 5.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you all step out just briefly. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Remember my instructions. Everything you need to know about this case is to come from inside the courtroom. And I know I didn't tell you last time, but I will let you know when it's time for you to deliberate. So you're not to deliberate amongst yourselves or internally with yourself. I'll let you know when it's time for that. Does everyone understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, everyone, please be seated. Oh, I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense is not finished with cross-examination of the complaining witness, but because there's a witness that needs to be taken up out of order because they're not going to be available, the defense has no objections to the state calling this witness, and tomorrow the defense will resume their cross-examination of the complainant. All right, state, call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Belinda Castellanos.
Oh, I don't know. Are they bringing her?
Let me check.
Can we approach?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Hello. All right, could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so the court reporter and the jurors can hear. If you could state your name for the record.
Belinda Castellanos.
State.
Good afternoon, Ms. Castellanos. Ms. Castellanos, are you currently employed?
I'm retired.
Where did you work prior to retirement?
The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what was your role there?
At first, I was an investigator, sexual abuse investigator from 2000 till 2011.
And how long total did you work for the Texas Department of Family and Protective?
20 years.
20 years?
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, when did you start?
2000.
Okay. And do you know Nina Sanchez?
Yes.
How did you come to know her?
I was investigator in a case that she was involved as a victim.
And if you can recall, when were you assigned to Nina's case?
I was assigned to her case February the 10th of 2007.
Just one second. And Ms. Castellanos, I'm sorry, for total candor with the court, I saw you have papers up there. I would ask you not to look at those papers at this time.
Okay.
And so I'm sorry, back to the question, when were you assigned to your case?
Can I just look at the dates?
Is there anything that is your memory exhausted as to the dates of when you received the case?
It was February 10th of 2007.
So you were assigned the case in February 2007.
Yes.
And why did CPS, or why was there a case opened involving Nina Sanchez?
There was allegations of sexual abuse.
And were you made aware of who those allegations were made against?
Yes.
And who were those allegations made against?
Richard Thomas.
And do you see Richard Thomas in the courtroom today?
Sure.
If you could please identify him by pointing to him and identifying the article of clothing he's wearing.
He's sitting right there with a brown shirt.
See, we request the record to reflect in court identification of the defendant. And Ms. Castellanos, what was your involvement in the case?
I interviewed everyone that was involved in the case to reach a determination whether abuse had or had not occurred.
And if you can recall, who was interviewed in this investigation?
Nina Sanchez, her mother, her siblings, Richard Thomas, and the reporter in the case.
And who was the reporter?
That's confidential.
Okay. And is that her CPS policy for that information to remain confidential?
That's in the Texas Family Code.
Thank you. And what type of conduct was alleged in this case?
Sexual abuse, allegations of digital penetration, and exposure of private areas.
And just to be clear for the record, what do you mean by digital penetration?
Digital penetration with fingers,
Penetrating what?
vaginal area.
And you said you interviewed Nina's mother in this case.
Yes.
What did without saying what she said, what did the interview involve?
With the mother of the victim.
With the mother?
Just basically doing a risk assessment of her family history and also letting her know of the alleged allegations and see if she knew anything about them or what did she have to say about it.
And when you're investigating the parents in a child protective services case, do you make an opinion as to whether or not the parents are protective in those
Yes.
cases? And in this case, after your interview with Santa Sanchez, Nina's mother, did you make an opinion as to whether or not she was protective of Nina?
Yes, at the time of the investigation, she was a protective parent.
So she was protective at that time.
Yes.
And what did you base that determination on?
When an investigation is going on, usually a safety plan is made with the parent that is not part of the abuse or neglect, and whether they will be protective of the children while the investigation is being conducted.
And if the defendant is, or if the, in a CPS case, if the person who's alleged to have committed the abuse is reintroduced to the home, do you still make that same determination that the parents are being protected?
Okay, at the time of the investigation, so it doesn't impede the investigation, it is asked that the alleged perpetrator does not have contact as to not impede the investigation. So at the time, she was protective in not allowing contact while the investigation was being conducted.
Did the determination that Santa Santos was being protective of Nina, did that same determination last throughout the duration of your investigation?
Yes, it did.
And at any point, did you become aware that the defendant was reintroduced to the home?
No,
So Santa Santa did not tell you that the defendant was moved back into the home 3 months after the allegations.
well, at that time, once I close the investigation, it goes on to family-based services, and that after the determination was made, the case was transferred for services. So at that point, I don't have any more contact with the family. It goes on for services.
And when did you close your case?
I closed my case, let's see the date, I can't remember, it was 18 years ago.
Is there anything that would refresh your recollection?
If I can look at what I,
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness.
you may.
Thank you. And you know what's been previously marked as State Exhibit 1. Please don't read from it. It's just to refresh your recollection, but you can look through to see if you can remember.
The case was closed May 2nd, 2007.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And you also said that the defendant was interviewed as well, correct?
Yes,
When you did the defendant make a statement to you about the allegations? Or I'll withdraw that question. Let me ask this first. How many times did you speak with the defendant?
twice.
Now, the first time you spoke with the defendant, what did he say regarding the allegations?
He denied the allegations. He was made aware of the allegations. He denied the allegations. And then I also did a risk assessment with him, family history, and also let him know the safety plan of them.
And what was the safety plan that was put in place in this case?
Just no contact while the investigation was being conducted.
And who was he supposed to not have contact with?
With Santa's children, just while the investigation, she went to go live with her mother while the investigation was being conducted.
And when did this first interview with the defendant take place? If you must refer to safety.
I first met with him, it was February the 20th, 2007.
And you said you met with him a second time, correct?
Yes,
When was the second interview conducted with the defendant?
the second interview was March 1st, 2007.
So approximately, just a few weeks later.
Yes,
And that second interview, who asked for that interview to be done?
Mr. Thomas contacted me and asked if he could meet with me.
And what did he want to meet with you regarding?
He wanted to let me know that he had touched Nina inappropriately, and he was said he felt bad about it, and he also wanted to get some help for it.
Now, did the defendant ever make a written statement regarding, his admission?
Yes,
And, was that written by, Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Thomas had asked if we could write it. So I had our admin come in, and he dictated what he wanted to say to her. And so she wrote it, and then she typed it out, and then it was read to him and asked if it was correct and if anything needed to be changed. And he said no, that it was fine, and we all three signed it at the same time.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Castellanos, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 2. What is that document?
This is a statement that he dictated that my secretary, our admin, typed out and read to him, and then we all three signed it.
And when was that statement?
March 1st, 2007,
And how do you know that?
because it's dated March 1st, 2007.
I think it's,
Oh, it's dated March 1st, 2007.
and, has this document been, edited or altered in any way to your knowledge?
No,
And, is it a true and accurate copy of the statement that was signed on March 1st, 2007?
yes,
And Your Honor, at this time, the state would seek to admit State's Exhibit number 2 into evidence.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object for the incomplete of the record. If the prosecutor wants to introduce the letter, it should be the full letter, not as redacted, Your Honor, because there's pertinent information that has been redacted from it.
All
So
right, if I can
there's
see
evidence rules.
State's Exhibit number 2, please.
And if I may, Your Honor.
Please go ahead.
All right. The defense is asking that the entire State's Exhibit number 2 be admitted without the rejection. Any objection?
If I may take a second to prefer. Your Honor. Your Honor, we won't have any objection to admitting the full document.
All right, if you will label it.
Uh,
If you want to call that State's Exhibit 2A.
2A, Your Honor.
All right, they're labeling the unredacted portion as State's Exhibit 2A. Defense, do you have any objection to State's Exhibit 2A?
You know, the reason I'm not giving this one is because that's my part number,
No, I understand. But are you going to have any objection to 2A?
not to the full document, no, Your Honor. No objections, Your Honor.
All right, then State's Exhibit 2A is admitted without objection.
Thank you. Ms. Castellanos, I'm presenting to you again what's been now admitted under State's Exhibit number 2A. If you can please read that document to the jury.
Okay. My name is Richard Thomas. I read the whole thing.
Yes, please.
My name is Richard Thomas. I'm 28 years old. My birth date is August 7th, 1978. I live at 2431 Penn Road, San Antonio, Texas. I'm here to talk to Ms. Castellanos regarding the results of a polygraph test I voluntarily took with Sabino Martinez. I am here of my own free will. I told Mr. Martinez I would discuss the results with Ms. Castellanos. I was informed by Mr. Martinez that I did not pass the test. I did touch Nina on her vaginal area by putting my fingers on the top of her vagina. I went to the back room where Nina and Jacqueline and my son Anthony were sleeping. Santa was asleep in another room. I checked to see if she was wet. I did not check Jacqueline. I never touched Jacqueline. I think I touched Nina and I went a little too far. I knew that this was wrong when I did it, and I felt very disgusted with myself. I did do it. I made the choice to do it. I knew it was wrong, and I did it with sexual intentions. I do not understand why Nina said it happened 3 times. It only happened once. I informed Ms. Castellanos that I wouldn't help, and I'm sorry for what I did. Everything I have stated in this statement is true. Stated is true.
Thank you, Ms. Castellanos. Now, previously you stated that this document was typed by a secretary, correct?
Yes,
And was it shown to the defendant prior to him signing it?
it was read to him, and then he was allowed to see it to make sure everything was correct.
Was he given the opportunity to make any edits if anything was not correct?
Yes,
And did he claim that anything was incorrect as written on this document?
no,
And he signed it,
yes,
and he signed it in front of you?
yes.
Thank you, Ms. Castellanos. No further questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
All right, defense.
Ms. Castellano, this is not the first time we meet, is it?
No,
You recall that in our prior meeting, you stated that you met with my client on January 20, 2007,
yes,
and then you stated that the referral came to you in February 12th of 2007.
yes,
But here today, you testified that it was on February the 10th.
yes. Well, we went through all that because there was a typo
Typo where? On,
on the narrative.
so when you testified earlier, when you said it was the 12th, there was a typo?
The month was wrong, but the date was correct.
So is it the 12th or the 10th?
So the first time I met with him was February the 20th, 2007. But it says January, but it was February.
Okay. And you stated, and I quote, that you interviewed everyone involved. Is that correct?
Yes,
Did you ask anyone involved to take a polygraph test?
I didn't ask anybody to take a polygraph test.
Okay. But was anybody else offered the opportunity to take a polygraph test?
There wasn't any other alleged perpetrator in the investigation.
So I guess the answer is no.
No,
Would the department want to make sure that the complaining witness is truthful?
the reporter,
Not the reporter, the complaining witness,
the victim.
the victim.
Yes,
And how does the department ensures that?
well, she's a child, so a 9-year-old should know about digital penetration.
Did you guys check her school records?
That has nothing to do with abuse or neglect.
Did you guys talk to her teachers?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
I can check. No, I did not talk to her teachers. I just talked to the two reporters.
Did you talk to her friends?
We don't interview other children in an investigation.
Did you interview her aunts?
No, I interviewed the reporters who were the ones that had knowledge of the allegations.
The ones that you're saying that are confidential,
Yes,
that we cannot ask any questions today.
yes.
Isn't that convenience?
Objection, sidebar.
I withdraw.
All right, the objection will be sustained.
You stated that the case, that big old thing that you have, was closed on March 1st, 2007?
Only my part of it.
I'm sorry?
Only my investigation is not part of this whole thing. Mine's just about
May I
6 or
approach
7
you, Honor?
pages.
Yes,
Did it close? Back, man.
Mhm.
Did it close your investigation on the same day that you received his purported confession?
So my part of my investigation closed when my investigation was completed. Then the case is transferred to family-based services, which is probably some of this. And if then anything else was added to it, it would be in here. But my part is the only part that's closed.
Okay, well, you stated, and I quote, that your investigation closed March 1st, 2007. Is that correct?
No, my whole investigation, because I still had to do the offense report, didn't close till like May.
What day is that? On
This
this?
is the day that he wrote the confession, doesn't necessarily mean the case was closed that day.
Now, how was that confession obtained?
Mr. Thomas called and made an appointment to come into my office.
After he had supposedly done a polygraph?
Yes.
Did you review that examination?
I did see the results, yes.
No, not the results, the examination.
I'm not a polygraph examiner. I wouldn't know how to read it.
So you wouldn't know that a polygraph doesn't detect truth, does it?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
that'll be overruled if you know.
I don't know.
It only measures some kind of reaction by your body, doesn't it?
Again, objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge, honor always.
To lack of personal knowledge, that will be sustained.
Why does the department use it then?
At that time, it was a tool that could be offered, but we don't make anybody go and take it.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes,
In that big pile that was shown to you, do you have the allegations made in February 2nd of 2010?
I don't know until what page is it? What do you want?
I'll tell you what. Let me show you what has been marked as defendant's exhibit number 8, I believe. I'm going to show you what has been marked as defendant's exhibit number 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to ask you whether you know what that document purports to be.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this time. The witness has already testified that her case was closed in 2007. These are allegations coming from 2010. Additionally, they call for hearsay. She was not the investigator. She was not the caseworker for those.
All right, none of that foundation has been laid. The court is unaware of what defendants 8, 9, and 10 is. That'll be overruled.
I can't answer to this because I did not do this investigation.
So you don't have any personal knowledge of the contents of this document?
No, I didn't do this investigation, so I
Okay.
couldn't.
You don't have any personal knowledge?
No.
And that's not part of the document that you have?
If it's another investigation, it might be, but it wasn't conducted by myself.
How many times has Nina made allegations sexual in nature?
I do not know. I just investigated my case.
You didn't investigate or pull out any priors?
No. I mean, I didn't investigate. If there was investigations that came after my investigation, I would not have any knowledge because I concluded mine and it'll go to another investigator so that there won't be any bias.
Would that have been appropriate procedure for the department to have done, to see,
Yes,
but it was not done?
to see what, I don't, I
If
don't
there's
understand the
other-
question.
Complaints, any priors?
That would be up to the investigator that is conducting the new investigation.
Tell me, Ms. Castellanos, were the children, the remainder children, bless you, of my client away from the household when this alleged confession was given to you?
Yes, at that time, they were staying with the grandmother.
Okay, and so when were the children returned to the house?
I have no knowledge of that because it went to family-based services and the family has to complete services that are offered by the department. And only when all that's done, then they make that determination when the children can be
Okay.
returned.
Please refer to your file. When were the children returned?
I do not know. That was not done while I was investigating. The investigation, after it was conducted, was referred to services for the family. That's another department, another caseworker. I am done with the case at the time the investigation is closed. When it goes to family base, that's a whole nother department, and the family is given a service plan that they're all supposed to comply with before that worker and her supervisor will determine when the children can be returned home. I do not have any knowledge of that.
The children were removed while you were doing the investigation, didn't they?
They weren't removed. They were never taken custody by the state. The mother agreed to do the safety plan while the investigation was being conducted
While the investigation being conducted?
so that it couldn't be said that the alleged person is impeding the investigation or trying to coerce the children.
That's your investigation.
That was my investigation. That's protocol.
And then you stop that investigation after you get a confession. Is that correct?
I concluded that yes, it was reason to believe and the child was credible.
And then the children are given back to the family.
At that time, the safety plan is still in place until the family can receive services. That's another department.
And you stated that you concluded that the child was safe.
Because the mother was being protective.
So it doesn't concern the department that allegedly my client has confessed to doing inappropriate things to a 14-year-old child,
She was 9 at the time.
9. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
When she was 9, what year would that have been?
2007.
2007.
Mhm.
Did you see 2007 in any of these dates?
I don't know what that,
I'm not asking you if you know what this is. Do you see 2007 in any of these dates?
And objection, Your Honor, to lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled.
no.
No. You have a confession, supposedly. Yes?
Mhm.
Nothing come about it,
No, I did an offense report to San Antonio Police Department.
okay? And was my client charged?
Like I said, I'm not law enforcement. I'm with Child Protective Services. So once my investigation is concluded and when it goes to SAPD, I have nothing to do with that.
So according to you, the investigation and the case was closed May 2nd of 2007. Is that correct?
I believe so.
At what point in this time does your investigation or your involvement end?
At that time. Once the offense report was made and then the case was transferred for services for the family.
Is it possible that my client made a confession in a desperation to get his children back?
They were never
Objection,
removed.
Your Honor, speculation.
Sustained.
Do parents sometimes do crazy stuff for their children?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled. You may answer.
I can't answer for the parents. I don't know what they're thinking.
Was the return of the children contingent upon that statement that you have?
The children were not taken by the state. They were still in custody of the parents.
Was the ability of the children to be back at their original place of Adobe, their residence, contingent upon that statement?
No,
They were let back in the household after the statement. Is that correct?
not while I was investigator. It went to family-based for services. I have nothing to do with that. If the family complies, I don't know what determination was made after that. I am just an investigator.
As an investigator, can you call the police and bring charges?
I don't bring charges. The district attorney brings charges. I'm just writing the offense report.
As an investigator, can you write a report and say, look, I'm required by law to let somebody know?
Anybody can make an offense report.
Did you do it?
Yes,
Where is it?
it was a form that we have as working with the police department, and it's a form.
Can you find it?
I don't know if it's in here, but I don't see that it's in here.
Nothing further for the defense, Your Honor.
State.
Briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Castellanos, you testified that you did not ask the defendant to take the polygraph exam, correct?
No, I did not.
To your knowledge, was that polygraph voluntary?
Yes,
And the children were never taken away from the home.
not during my investigation. Like I said, the mother was compliant.
And the defendant of his own volition requested to meet with you to make that confession.
Yes, he did.
In your experience as an investigator with CPS, do children always give all the details about an incident when you first interview them?
Is that objection beyond the scope? Beyond cross?
Overruled.
You can answer that.
When I interviewed this child, she did give detailed information about what happened to her, and she was credible. Whether she gave all the information at that time, I do not know.
But in your experience, do children give all of the details when you first meet with them in their first meeting?
Objection, Your Honor, ask and answer.
Overruled.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Just depends on the child. Every child's different.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Castellano. The prosecutor just asked you if you asked my client to submit to a polygraph test. Correct?
Yes.
And you said no.
No.
Who asked my client?
I believe his wife did.
His wife asked him.
She was going to talk to him about it. I don't know.
Did his wife also ask him or ask Nina to submit to a polygraph?
Objection, hearsay. Call for hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer if you know the answer to that question.
I don't know. I do not know.
What's the mother's name?
Santa? Santa?
And at that time that she allegedly asked my client to submit to a polygraph test, were they married?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
I don't remember.
At the time that she asked my client to submit to a polygraph test, and I know this is a little tricky, I keep asking remove, were the children inside her home, in her home?
No, she went and stayed with her mother.
So they were not living in their home.
No.
That's what I refer to as remove.
Well, that's not removed by the state.
I didn't say by the state, as a man removed from their household.
Objection, sidebar, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Were they removed from their household?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
You can answer.
Oh, at that time, she had the choice whether to stay in her home or go stay with her mother, and she chose to go stay with her mother.
So now you get this alleged confession and now everybody comes back to their home.
I don't know, because the case went for services.
You stated that Nina seemed credible. That's
Yes.
right. How long you spend with her?
Usually in interviews it depends on how much the child's talking. It could be as long as it takes for the child to feel comfortable and say what they need to say.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you usually. I'm asking you with Nina.
Maybe like an hour,
In an hour, you're able to ascertain that the child is truthful.
pretty much.
You didn't ask teachers, friends, family. You just listened to a child.
If a child is giving descriptions of what she is saying happened to her, and an 8-year-old should not know about sexual things at that age, I would tend to believe when she gives detailed statements that it's credible.
Was this interview recorded?
Yes, I believe, yes, it was.
Did you have a video of it?
No, at that time we used CDs, I believe. This is 18 years ago.
Do you know whether that interview has been provided to the defendant?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled. You can answer if you know the question to the answer.
I do not know.
Well, you have never seen it, have you?
The interview, I did it.
A DVD video of the interview.
It was an audio.
And again, do you have any knowledge whether that audio has been turned over to the defendant?
No, it's
Objection,
usually,
asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
it's usually protocol that it goes with the case, so, it would go into, the department's records.
Would you be surprised if I told you that I don't have it?
You could have requested it.
Will you be surprised, ma'am?
Objection.
You don't have to answer that. I have no further questions.
All right. State.
Nothing further based on that, Your Honor.
All right. Is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse from the state.
I would like to have this witness subject to recall for impeachment purposes only.
All right. You may be asked to come back, so make sure that you're available if you're needed to come back to testify.
Okay.
The rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, thank you so much.
Thank
You may step down. All right, can I see parties briefly, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to take our break for today. What I am anticipating, and again, this is just me anticipating, I never really know when a trial is going to end, but I'm being told by both parties that they perhaps think they may be ready to do closing arguments on Friday. So I do have a docket tomorrow. So I'm going to have you all back here tomorrow at 1, and then we'll continue with testimony at 1. Then I'm anticipating on Friday closing arguments, maybe either Friday morning or at the latest, maybe Friday by 10:30 a.m. You have heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to start deliberating internally within yourself or with each other. I'll let you know when it's time to deliberate. You are not allowed to view anything or talk to anybody about this case. You are not to do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case is to come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
All right, so you all, we're off the record, so you all will have a chance to beat the rush hour traffic.
Thank you.
All right, so tomorrow you're going to be here at 1. So on Thursday, there are still jurors that come in and we still get about 500. So usually people tend to go off campus for lunch. So probably if you're here by 12:30, you should probably have a parking space. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, please be seated. So everyone, we are going to have a hearing with regards to any statements that the defense is seeking to ask the complainant, and the court will make a decision tomorrow on whether or not what the defense is seeking to have presented before the jury is admissible. So I'll give you all a chance to make your record, and you can ask your questions, defense, and state if you wish to ask questions as well. And then what I will do is I will give everyone a chance to go home, sleep, so that you can make your arguments to me tomorrow.